Black lives matter worldwide till the end of time. We rising up. Can't nobody stop us. The love we got's colossal. We rising up. White supremacy, your throne's about to topple. We rising up.
So we discovered adverse childhood experiences in about 2012, even though the data's been around for a long time. And it really came sort of a light bulb for us that went on because, you know, we work with girls and young women who are primarily system involved, child welfare, juvenile justice, homeless and runaway youth, young moms, trafficking survivors. So the challenge is in doing policy work, how do you describe the level of barriers and challenges that they face? In a real sense, how do you quantify the results of oppression over generations in ways that policymakers who are not that population understand? And we found in adverse childhood experiences the first steps, I think, in really being able to do that. So adverse childhood experiences look at abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction. And the data is so compelling. People get it, people understand, because everyone has an ACE score. It may be high, it may be 0, it may be 10, but everyone has one. So it has become sort of a common point of comparison. So now you can go before a white male legislator, and maybe actually you don't even know, but his score is higher. And I think that's why it's been helpful in the policy arena. Now with girls and young women, it's a different story. With girls and young women, the ACE scores is a revelation. It is for them the proof that they are not bad, they are not stupid, they are not wrong. They're the product of all the things that came before them. And they're able to see it as a tool of empowerment and really sort of self-identification of why they're sitting where they're sitting. I think it's absolutely critical for educators to have information about ACE scores of their students because, you know, frankly, education is the best early warning system we have, right? You may see a child early in their life, and maybe at that point, if you knew, you would know that their score is a 1 or 2. Could you be the buffer, or could you support the family and the rest of the school environment and school staff to ensure that it doesn't get any higher? Likewise, if you know that a child has a very, very high ACE score, you're going to understand their behavior differently because you're going to realize that the context is not about what they've done wrong, but what happened to them, and how do you then become part of the solution to that?
A lot of times people, they see me and they're like, oh, that's Dr. Morris, and not know that I live with a pretty high ACE score. People don't expect for me to say that because I present a certain way. People don't know my story, just like people don't know your story. And I think it's important to also acknowledge some of the things that we've inherited in this society. So like you, first I was real angry with some adults who created some spaces that were unhealthy for me. And then I realized that there's a lot in historical trauma, there's a lot in the narrative and the conditions of this society that we were born into that even go beyond the ACEs, that inform how the ACEs shape in our lives, that is important for us to know in order for us to heal. So this is ultimately about understanding and using this information to heal, to know that you have strategies for survival. Some of it we just pick up, right? Like we know how to rock in certain spaces, we know what to say in certain ways, we know how to behave in front of certain people, or we know when it's time to get loud because that's what's gonna keep us safe. Like all these things that we learn as survival tools move us only to a space of survival rather than thriving and being healed and whole, so that we can interrupt the cycles that we're talking about. But in order to do that, we also have to know that there is a legacy of oppression that sometimes we don't name. And that as young women in this society, some of us are dealing with multiple, I think everyone in here is dealing with multiple forms of oppression. And being able to understand what oppression is, how it plays out, how sometimes we play into it in order to survive, how sometimes we need to reject it in order to survive. All these things are part of how we come to embrace the journey that we have that will heal us. And only we can heal ourselves, right? So understanding that we have that power, the body has that power, the mind has that power, is a critical tool for us in this space. And the honesty, that has already been shared in explaining what this is as a number, but also understanding that these numbers represent real experiences and real conditions is, I think, how we start to make meaning of why we're collected in this space.